Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we have a brand new ship to take a look at today, the Tier 10 Incheon. This is a new Pan-Asian cruiser that takes a lot of inspiration from Des Moines and Tulsa, actually. You could think of this ship as a Tulsa with an extra turret, so we do have that destroyer dispersion on these guns. And with that, you're nearly at a Des Moines level of DPM. You have exactly the same reload as a Des Moines, as well as having 8 out of those 9 barrels. But with better dispersion means that kind of makes up for it. Our AP DPM is 436,000 versus the 490 on the Des Moines. So very, very close here. We also get a smoke screen here. This is a Pan-Asian smoke, so a lot like Jinan. Relatively fast recharge time. They don't stick around for too long like the American smokes do, but I actually see this as a benefit. And you also get the deep water torps off a Jinan, or at least before Jinan got this buff, the most recent update. These torpedoes are incredibly powerful. 17,900 alpha. They go 13.5 kilometers, 95-second reload, and you have a torpedo reload booster. You only get 4 per side though, so it's not a full Jinan, don't worry. But that's still some pretty insane power, I gotta say. And with everything looking so good with this ship, of course, what has to crash the party but the way you get this ship? Unfortunately, this ship is part of a random drop chance in a Wishing Wharf event that is going to go live soon. So unfortunately, the way you're going to get this one, of course, comes down to gambling. Feels bad for those of you that wanted a Des Moines with a smoke. That's a pretty interesting proposition, I gotta say. But what's the drop chance? Perhaps it's not so bad. Well, it's 3.25% chance to drop a ship in this Wishing Wharf event. But there's more than one. Yeah, there's 7 within that 3.25% chance. So less than 0.5% chance to drop Incheon. That's real bad. What can I say at this point, man? I've already said it. Wargaming will never listen to me, of course, right? Especially when it comes to the monetization of this game. They don't even listen when it comes to gameplay balance, so I mean, I'm just talking to you guys who all obviously would agree that we don't want to gamble for these ships. So I'm going to leave it at that. Feels bad, but this ship is really interesting. That's maybe the worst part about it. I actually really had a lot of fun with this ship. I think Incheon is very, very powerful. It gives us a sneak peek into what the Des Moines line might have been like had it been released in 2025, or an alternate version of it, I suppose. Maybe it wouldn't have had these smokes. Something like Anchorage, though, does have a smoke screen, and that is an American cruiser, so maybe. This improved dispersion, though, is incredible. Alongside this DPM is very, very good. Unfortunately, in this first one, we did run into an AFK ship, and I think this Colombo is just giving up. But it does give us a chance to see what this DPM can really do. Of course, HE is very powerful on the Des Moines class ships. You have incredible fire chance, and with these 203s, you get through over 32 millimeters of armor. To be more specific, you get through 34, but the main threshold is 32. Very, very powerful. But I really think you want to use mostly AP. And in fact, I might have used too much HE in these games, hoping for fires and not really getting much damage out of those fires. The AP, though, does incredible damage. 5,000 alpha damage per shell, has decent pen, but most importantly, you have improved ricochet angles, 60 to 68 degrees. So below a 60-degree angle, which results in around like a 30 degree when you're looking at that bottom left icon there, that navigator mod, it's gonna full pen, and that means you really have to perfectly angle to these shells, otherwise you're taking a ton of damage. Nice cracking in that first game, although, you know, few AFK things, unfortunately. In a smoke screen, of course, you have to worry about getting blind fired, and this ship got a lot of focus, so I would be very concerned if you're going to get this ship or try to get this ship, you're gonna get focused down. Here's an Oregon just blind firing us. We're not even like consistently shooting at him here. And surprisingly, he gets some good damage, even though we weren't really firing. He didn't have a great lineup on us. Maybe he's got that smoke mod as well, I suppose. But watch out for the blind fire. It's gonna happen. This is a rather large ship. The armor is not great. 25 mil bow, 30 on the upper belt, 30 on the deck armor, and an exposed middle portion of your citadel. You got to be careful. But fortunately for us, we have some of the best firing angles in the entire game. That's maybe the special sauce here when it comes to the Incheon. You have a 25-degree firing angle forwards and backwards to shoot all of your guns. Incredible stuff. Here we see the power of those torpedoes. Absolutely wonderful. I did the Tiger 59 ship request, of course, last week and was lamenting my lack of torpedoes. You see what it can do when you just have a few torps at close range around islands? It's so nice. I really wish that ship had that. But that's for a different video, of course. We're talking about the Incheon here. This is awesome with these firing angles. So you're able to stay very, very well angled. You still have to worry about sap, things like Colombo. There's a Laria in this game, for example. You also have to worry about overmatch. So anything with 30 millimeters of overmatch is going to do a lot of damage to you. But you have smokes. So you're able to play this more open water angled role if you're not or less likely to be overmatched, or you can smoke up, assuming you have some spotting. In that first game, I had the more standard build with concealment. We have slightly worse detection than the Des Moines, but not by too much. So we should probably run a more conceal-focused build, but in this one, I'm running full lighthouse. I wanted to see the damage output of this thing. With a smoke screen, it's much more viable or easier to run these builds, I think, just because you have that ability to get away from a bad situation or set up and farm in a position where otherwise you wouldn't be able to, or you'd be at more of a risk. For example here, where most of the enemy team is at the sea cap here, and if we were open water lighthouse cruiser, you can imagine how much focus we would be getting. But the smoke helps us out so much with that. Notice more of this blind dropping, blind shots in smoke. Even the carrier comes after us. There's a juicy Yamato broadside. But no, this ship will take a lot of focus. So just be careful with that. You do need to be maneuvering around in your smoke. And in fact, I do get forced out here. This ship does not have any sort of improved acceleration like we see on some of the British ships. If you're used to those cruisers in smoke, that's not going to happen here. When we're up to speed, though, the ship is relatively maneuverable, especially when we have the rudder shift upgrade mod here with this lighthouse build. We have terrible concealment, but we have incredible rudder shift alongside a decent turning circle radius, 800 meters. Stock rudder shift is 8.3 seconds. Really, really nice to have that extra ability to maneuver around. And in fact, the normal build was maneuverable enough that I didn't feel like I needed to go lighthouse to still dodge a lot of incoming fire. Sending out more torpedoes, that's the other element of running a lighthouse build that we lack, is using the torpedoes as effectively. Being able to stealth torp is really, really nice. Being able to set up in front of an enemy push a little bit closer to use those torps more often is really good. These are super powerful torps. They're deep waters. I don't know if I mentioned that quite yet, but deep waters meaning they will not hit destroyers. But they have some incredible detection. 0.8 kilometers is the only awareness you have of them. So as a battleship or cruiser player, these things are absolutely terrifying to deal with because they just appear on the broadside of your ship and there's really not much reaction time in it for you. This game, we're also getting focused down by the carrier a little bit more. We're going to actually get Clear Sky or whatever the AA medal is. I forget these days. But that's not to say our AA is really all that good, unfortunately. It's slightly better at the continuous DPS than Des Moines, specifically at the really close 2-kilometer range, but not enough to be meaningfully different. The flak is identical. I think the key here is that your consumables are actually locked. So there is no option to take a hydro here, where a lot of times on Des Moines, you're probably not taking D-Fire, you're probably taking a hydro, unless you really are getting focused by a carrier and you just want that extra protection. But for the most part, I think most builds are running hydro on a Des Moines, and I would love to run hydro here if I could. Torped in your smoke is an incredibly common experience when you're running these smoked up cruiser, light cruiser, heavy cruiser builds. Because as a destroyer player, I love it when a large ship sets up in a smoke stationary and I can just torp them out. It's really, really nice. So for us, that is a bit of a downside. Similar to Jinan, in fact, not having access to that. We're going to smoke up here, though. I'm a little bit worried about pushing into a crossfire here. Yes, we have good firing angles, and the armor can hold up, but it's still not the best. So we do have to be a little bit careful. Howden on our flank, as well as Laria, Mecklenburg. There's also a Shima nearby. Notice I'm still detected in my smoke. So that must mean there's a destroyer nearby, either Yu Yang or the Shima. But our smoke fire is pretty bad. 8.5 kilometer smoke fire detect, which means these smokes are useful. But you can't use them at very close ranges. You have to be a little bit careful of that. So in this case, a bit of a wasted smoke, unfortunately. There we go. We somehow proxy the Shima. He's got 5k, 6k HP, in fact. But look at the dispersion. First salvo, 4,800. I gotta say, that Tulsa dispersion buff was pretty nice on a ship with 6 guns. But add a whole nother turret? Oh yes, I had a good time playing this ship, guys. I haven't played it that much. I've really only played the 4 games here that you're gonna see snippets of in this video. But I'm very excited to play it more throughout this next week here, as I think this is gonna be an awesome ship to be playing at tier 10. Very powerful, good at farming, and in those games where a Des Moines feels a little bit insignificant or difficult to play because there's a lot of open water, or the carrier is spotting you constantly and you're getting lobbed over islands. There's just really difficult matches to play in Des Moines. I did play it, I think through December, maybe it was beginning of January, to see what it was like before the Tulsa buff, just to see. And I had a tough time in it, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe it was Matchmaker, maybe it was Christmas Matchmaker. That was pretty rough over the Christmas months, but it was pretty rough. And having played this ship now, it's so much more convenient to play. I wouldn't necessarily say easier, because cruiser is still hard. You can still get deleted if you're not paying attention. Little foreshadowing there. Maybe I should make that a little less obvious, but you can get deleted still, so you got to be careful, you got to pay attention. But having this smoke is so nice. Yes, nearly died to the Mecklenburg on like 2 HP. Should have been paying more attention. I was getting distracted, though, by killing off this carrier here. We do have ourselves a Kraken already. That's 6 kills. What a close match. The enemy team was ahead, and we've brought it back, kind of. Mecklenburg gets a heal, though, so unfortunately, I think he's going to get away. But the carrier, the enemy carrier, that is, so kindly smokes us up. So the Mecklenburg won't have any spotting after we finish off his planes. Luckily for us. Massive amount of plane damage here, and even though I don't think many of those planes were actually strike planes, a lot of them were just fighters, that means there's a lot of spotting for us, and that can be a bit of an issue. And again, just having those smokes, something like a Des Moines really will suffer in games like this, where the Incheon here allows us to smoke up and have a little reprieve, which is really nice. I'm going to miss aim here a little bit and play a little too greedy. Notice there's a Vincent and a Laria on my broadside. I'm greeting far too hard for this Mecklenburg, unfortunately. And my shells are going to go high because I was expecting him to kite away. So a few mistakes here at the end, unfortunately, but an absolute monster of a game. And perhaps our team can clutch it out if we can trade out this Mecklenburg. But here we see we get crossfired by someone on our flank, and then we don't finish off the Mecklenburg in time. So either these shells kill us, which they do, or the Mecklenburgs would have. Perhaps if I had stayed in sea and used the summer's spotting to farm the battleships, I would have been able to do more. But that's still a very good game. 7 kills, pretty wild stuff. Some of them were secures, but I think we were doing some solid damage into destroyers as well. Anytime I could, I was trying to. The shell velocity hurts. Yes, it does. Des Moines shell velocity is a pain point. But having this accuracy is so nice. Our Summers, I watched to the end of this game, actually, just to see if he could clutch it out. He almost did. It was very close and played very well. And of course, Laria, Kraken himself on the enemy team, clutching up and winning that game for his side. Now back to a more standard build, and just notice how much more comfortable it is to play. I love those lighthouse builds for the DPM, the damage output, but it's so much more comfy to play a more standard conceal focused build. You can push up closer to the enemy team where they're pushing, get your torps off, and then get into a kited position. A little safer that way, set up in a smoke, less risk that way. And for cruisers that, as we know, can certainly explode if we're not paying attention, it's really nice to have that extra level of concealment to position yourself well. That's going to be the key here. With a ship with a smoke screen as its main gimmick, I would say, you need to learn how to position these smokes to get the most value out of them. Otherwise, I mean, you're just missing out on radar, right? That is the thing I haven't mentioned yet when it comes to Des Moines. Having that 10-kilometer radar is awesome. It is very powerful. Helps you win a lot of games by impacting those destroyer engagements, getting you that extra spotting, and oftentimes you can make use of a lot of islands in these games that allow you to effectively have a smokescreen, which keeps you undetected, keeps you away from harm. The Incheon here allows us to set up in other positions, but we still want to use island cover. So if we're not getting as much value out of these smokes, then perhaps Des Moines is still just a little bit better. So I don't know if this ship is overpowered. I would not say that necessarily, but I do think it's a very good ship. And here we're seeing, again, the power of those insane torpedoes against this poor defense here. You really just do not spot them. These deepwater torps are crazy, man. I really don't like pushing into them at all. It is very, very difficult. And a really nice power for this ship to have when we're a more conceal-focused build is the key here, allowing us to set up, play a little safer, and not be as detected for so long and focused down, I guess. But I think it's good. I'll show you a couple builds here at the end as well, but just know that this DPM is enough to even scare away some battleships from pushing into you. We're going to deal with a Colombo here, perhaps one of the scariest ships in the game for a cruiser player right now. But thanks to our decent enough rudder shift time and turning circle radius, we can avoid a lot of this incoming damage here early, and our very, very comfortable firing angles allow us to shoot all of our guns while staying very well angled. Sure, SAP will crush through us anyway, but slowing down and turning out, as always, such a good tactic, because the aim assist, the auto aim, it pulls his shells low and away from our ship, so it's kind of a hack to dodge some incoming fire. People can aim for it, but it's still hard to compensate for. Perhaps, though, the Libertad coming back as well as the Zhao was more of the pressure that forced the Colombo to smoke, but still, Colombo smoked up, didn't want to deal with us. That was probably the Libertad coming back, let's be honest. And I shot a lot of HE in these games, man. Looking back, I think I shot too much because this AP is awesome. Better pen angles than almost anything in the game, combined with destroyer dispersion on these 8 guns. Just look at that damage output. Really, really nice to see that here. And not getting as many citadels as I would have wanted to, but I guess that's because the midway is slowing down and turning in. So a very interesting ship, unique play style. It's a bit like a better Anchorage up at tier 10. I really enjoyed Anchorage when that ship was coming out. I think that was a dockyard ship. So really interested in this one personally. Just hate the monetization, man. Hate is a strong word, but oh boy. Well, I guess we'll see how bad it is once this event finally launches. Literally all the information I have is it's going to be one of 7 ships in a 3.25% drop chance in a wishing wharf. That's the info I have. So we'll see, man. I'm expecting it to be pretty terrible to actually try and get this ship, unfortunately. I'd like to be wrong, though. That'd be nice. And as for the builds here, I would probably recommend some sort of middle ground, or at least more closely aligned with this one. I do think you could run heavy AP. Certainly could be a very nice skill to have, that extra AP damage, but the damage output is really good already just building like this, and we do get much improved concealment. I really want Gunfeeder, since these are Des Moines guns. We all know how strong the AP and the HE is, so I really, really like Gunfeeder here, as well as Incoming Fire Alert. It does mean we don't get something like Grease the Gears. Incoming Fire Alert's just an easy way to know if people are shooting at you from range, although you got to pay attention to it. You notice how that went off when the Mecklenburg shot me and I just still didn't maneuver? Still got to pay attention, man. Still got to pay attention. But it does mean our turret traverse is a little worse, but still, at 25.9 seconds, it's still pretty good, I would say. And that's including reload mod here. Very powerful to have. Survivability expert buffed up here on this guy. I was using the other special commander, but never procced his main skills. So if you want more of a lighthouse build, this is what I was running here. And very greedy. Given that we already have DD dispersion, maybe don't need outnumbered, but some of those salvos didn't look like DD dispersion, did it? maybe just everything gets trolled by dispersion in this aim system, even with destroyer dispersion. It's crazy sometimes. But this is what I was running there in those lighthouse builds. Very greedy, very aggressive. Maybe too greedy here, because that gives us 15.9 detect with 16.1 range. Oh, I guess I didn't mention that, actually. Yeah, you have more range than a Des Moines, too. Oh, man. Poor Des Moines, dude. It's such a long time ago that ship was released. 15.8 on the Des Moines, 16.1 here. It's basically a smoke Des Moines with deep water torps and DD dispersion, if you want to think of it like that. You lack the radar, I guess, and a bit of the armor, I suppose, as well. But that was the build I was running here. That gave us this 5-second rudder shift time. Pretty cool. But if you're running a more standard build, you still get 8.3 rudder, which isn't too bad at all either. And if I go back and take the more reasonable commander here, which is not that one, it's this guy, we get ourselves 11.2 detect. Not too bad, but it is a little bit worse than what the Des Moines has. Armor-wise, yes, 25 bow, 30 upper belt, 30 deck armor. There's some shot traps here in the back you got to be a little bit careful of, and your citadel is definitely exposed, although it's not really under the turrets. You notice how much lower this is down here. So you can poke some islands and do that little island poke gimmick where you only show this portion of your ship, and they can't really citadel you. Although 152, man, that is not a lot of armor for something that is above water. Be careful with this thing. But fortunately, you can angle like almost no ship can. 25 degrees, front and back. Tulsa only gets that when it's pushing, I think. Kiting, it doesn't quite get that. Or maybe it's the other way. Kiting? I think kiting, it gets it. 30 degrees otherwise. So really nice to have that looking both ways here. Really, really strong. AA is all right. I mean, if the carrier focuses you for a while, you will get those clear sky medals, but don't expect that to happen too often. You're not going to prevent the carrier from coming and dropping you, that's for sure. But that's going to do it for today on the Incheon here. Very interesting ship with an abysmal monetization and way you get it, unfortunately. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.